Traveling the world can be a life-changing experience, but not all destinations are accessible to everyone. Americans, for instance, face strict travel restrictions when it comes to certain countries. Whether due to political tensions, safety risks, or government bans, some places remain firmly off-limits. In this video, we'll take you through countries that Americans cannot visit right now. We'll explore the reasons behind these restrictions, what makes these nations unique, and what travelers need to know about the current situation. At number 1, we have North Korea, one of the most secretive and isolated countries in the world. In 2017, the US government officially banned all American citizens from traveling to North Korea. This came after the tragic death of Otto Warmbier, a US college student who was detained in North Korea for allegedly stealing a propaganda poster. While North Korea has long been known for its harsh treatment of foreigners, the travel ban also reflects the lack of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Any American entering North Korea faces the risk of arrest, imprisonment, or worse. Even before the ban, tourism in North Korea was highly controlled. Visitors could only travel as part of guided tours, and every movement was monitored by government-appointed handlers. The ban has been extended annually and will remain in place through at least 2025. Number 2. Syria. Syria was once a hub of ancient civilization, home to breathtaking archaeological sites like Palmyra and the old city of Damascus. Today, however, the country remains devastated by a brutal civil war that has raged for over a decade. For Americans, traveling to Syria is not just discouraged, it's outright dangerous. The US Department of State has issued a Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory due to the risks of terrorism, kidnapping, and armed conflict. Additionally, the US Embassy in Syria has been closed since 2012, leaving no consular services available in the region. Even humanitarian workers face extreme challenges here, making Syria one of the least accessible countries in the world. 3. Libya. Libya, once a key destination for history buffs and adventurers, is now off-limits due to ongoing violence and political instability. The country has been in a state of unrest since the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, with various factions vying for control. For Americans, the risks are especially high. The State Department warns of terrorism, armed conflict, and the potential for kidnapping. Without a functioning US embassy in Libya, there's no consular assistance for travelers. Despite its rich history, including incredible Roman ruins like Leptis Magna, Libya remains unsafe for tourism. Until the situation stabilizes, it's firmly on the list of countries Americans cannot visit. Number 4. Yemen. Yemen was once celebrated for its unique culture and stunning landscapes, including ancient cities that date back thousands of years. Today, however, it's the epicenter of one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. Since 2015, Yemen has been embroiled in a devastating conflict that has left millions in need of humanitarian aid. For Americans, traveling here is virtually impossible due to the risks of terrorism, armed conflict, and a complete lack of infrastructure for tourism. The US State Department has issued a strict Do Not Travel advisory for Yemen, making it one of the most dangerous places on the planet. 5. Belarus. While Belarus is often overshadowed by its neighbors, it has a unique history and culture worth exploring. Unfortunately, for Americans, Belarus has become increasingly inaccessible due to political tensions and its involvement in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. In response to Belarus' support of Russia, the US has imposed sanctions and advised against all travel to the country. Belarus has also faced domestic unrest, with massive protests against President Alexander Lukashenko's regime being met with harsh crackdowns. For now, Belarus remains a politically volatile destination that's unsafe for American travelers. 6. Somalia. Somalia, located on the Horn of Africa, is a country of contrasts. Its pristine beaches and rich cultural heritage are overshadowed by decades of conflict, terrorism, and instability. The U.S. State Department advises against travel to Somalia due to the risks of armed conflict, piracy, and kidnapping. Terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab operate in the region, targeting both locals and foreigners. For Americans, Somalia remains one of the most dangerous places to visit, despite its undeniable beauty and cultural significance. Number 7. Iran. Iran is a land of stunning architecture, ancient history, and rich culture. However, for Americans, it's also a complex destination due to strained U.S.-Iran relations. While Iran technically allows American tourists to apply for visas, the process is far from straightforward. U.S. citizens can only travel to Iran as part of organized tour groups, and they must be accompanied by a guide at all times. Even so, the U.S. government strongly advises against travel to Iran, citing risks of arbitrary detention, harassment, and limited access to consular support. The political tensions between the two countries have escalated in recent years, making Iran an increasingly difficult destination for Americans to visit safely. 8. Myanmar. Myanmar, once a top destination for travelers seeking stunning temples and serene landscapes, is now in turmoil following a military coup in 2021. The U.S. State Department has issued a Level 4 Do Not Travel advisory for Myanmar due to widespread civil unrest, arbitrary detentions, and the violent suppression of protests. For Americans, the risks far outweigh the rewards of visiting this otherwise beautiful country. At number 9, we have Russia. Once a popular destination for history buffs and adventurers, Russia has become increasingly inaccessible to Americans due to the ongoing war in Ukraine and heightened political tensions. The U.S. State Department warns of risks including wrongful detention, surveillance, and harassment. Additionally, obtaining a visa for Russia has become more difficult, with consular services being limited. Until the geopolitical climate changes, Russia remains a challenging and risky destination for U.S. travelers. 10. Venezuela. Venezuela, once one of South America's wealthiest nations, has been plunged into economic and political turmoil over the past decade. For Americans, Venezuela is now considered one of the riskiest places to visit. The U.S. government has issued a strict Do Not Travel advisory for Venezuela, citing widespread violence, political instability, and hyperinflation. Daily life in Venezuela is marked by shortages of basic goods like food, water, and medicine, while crime rates remain among the highest in the world. Caracas, the capital, has seen an alarming rise in kidnappings and violent crimes, with foreign nationals often targeted for ransom. Additionally, the strained diplomatic relationship between the U.S. and Venezuela means limited consular support for Americans in case of emergencies. For those who dream of visiting Venezuela's natural wonders like Angel Falls or Los Roques Archipelago, the current risks outweigh the rewards. Until stability is restored, Venezuela remains firmly off-limits for U.S. travelers. Number 11. Cuba. A mere 90 miles from the U.S. coastline, Cuba has long been a mysterious and alluring destination for American travelers. While not outright banned, travel to Cuba is heavily restricted due to decades of political tensions between the U.S. and Cuban governments. Currently, Americans are only allowed to visit Cuba under specific categories such as family visits, educational programs, or cultural exchanges. The tourism category is explicitly prohibited, and travelers must adhere to a strict itinerary to ensure compliance with U.S. regulations. Additionally, Americans are barred from staying in hotels owned by the Cuban government, which limits lodging options. Even with these restrictions, travelers can still experience Cuba's vibrant culture, rich history, and unique charm through legal programs. However, navigating the complex regulations and ensuring compliance requires significant planning. For many, these hurdles make visiting Cuba a challenging endeavor. Number 12. South Sudan. South Sudan is the world's youngest country, having gained independence from Sudan in 2011. However, this newfound independence has been marred by political conflict, ethnic violence, and widespread instability. For Americans, South Sudan is an extremely dangerous destination. The U.S. State Department warns of armed conflict, lawlessness, and violent crime, including carjackings, robberies, and kidnappings. Infrastructure is virtually non-existent, with poor roads, limited healthcare, and no reliable public services. The country is also grappling with a severe humanitarian crisis, with millions displaced by violence and living in refugee camps. Access to clean water, food, and medical supplies is scarce. While South Sudan's natural landscapes, like the Sud wetlands, offer immense beauty, the risks far outweigh the rewards for potential travelers. 13. Central African Republic. The Central African Republic has been locked in a cycle of violence for decades, fueled by political instability, ethnic divisions, and competition over natural resources. For Americans, CAR is one of the most dangerous countries in the world to visit. Armed groups control vast swaths of the country, engaging in clashes that often spill over into civilian areas. Kidnappings, robberies, and violent crimes are rampant, with foreign nationals frequently targeted. Additionally, there is little to no infrastructure in place to support tourism, and healthcare facilities are extremely limited. While CAR boasts stunning natural landscapes, including Zanga-Zanga National Park and its unique wildlife, these areas are inaccessible due to ongoing conflict. The country's humanitarian crisis, with millions displaced and dependent on aid, further underscores the dangers of visiting CAR. Finally, Eritrea. Eritrea is a country of contrasts. Stunning landscapes and unique history coexist with one of the most repressive regimes in the world. For Americans, visiting Eritrea is incredibly difficult due to strict government controls and limited diplomatic relations. The Eritrean government imposes severe restrictions on movement within the country. Travelers require permits to visit areas outside the capital, Asmara, and even then, access is often denied. The U.S. Embassy in Asmara warns of arbitrary detention and harassment of foreigners, further complicating travel plans. Additionally, Eritrea is one of the most isolated countries globally, with limited internet access and minimal interaction with the outside world. Despite its beautiful coastline along the Red Sea and its historical significance as a former Italian colony, the risks and challenges of visiting Eritrea make it an unfeasible destination for Americans. These countries are currently off-limits to Americans, but that doesn't mean the world is closed. With over 190 countries to explore, there are still countless opportunities for adventure, culture, and discovery.